Hi, my name is Rebecca Cassidy. I'm Assistant Dean and Director of the Office of Professional Development at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. Today we're going to be talking about interviewing. Lots of students come to me asking about preparing for an interview, and so I'd like to share with you today what the major parts of the interview are and how you can prepare for each part. Each interview is divided up into 5 main sections. Sometimes you'll be asked all 5 sections. Sometimes you'll just have a couple of those sections. It depends on the interview and how far you are into the process. But for the most part, interview questions can be categorized into these 5 sections. First, you'll have a tell me about yourself. Sometimes you're asked the question, walk me through your resume, but essentially those are the same question. The bulk of most interviews, particularly first round interviews, are comprised of behavioral questions. These questions are usually started with the phrase, tell me about a time when. Those behavioral questions, as we'll see in a few minutes, are really trying to predict how you will behave in certain similar types of situations you would face on the job. Once you've had the behavioral questions, some interviewers will then move into either industry-specific questions or technical questions, depending on the type of industry you are interviewing for. If you're interviewing for a finance interview, these are where your technical questions will come in. If you're interviewing for a consulting interview, these are your case interview questions. Other industries have other industry-specific questions, and we can talk about those in a little bit. The next set of questions are going to ask you, why are you interested in this position, and why are you interested in this industry? Finally, you'll be asked the question, what questions do you have for me? And yes, you always have questions for the interviewer. So now we're going to go through each section specifically one by one and talk about the question type and what you should and should not do for each question type. The tell me about yourself question is really trying to allow the interviewer to determine how you got to this point in your career. There's a certain formula to answering this question, and that formula is you start with where you are now, you go back in time a little bit, bring the listener back to where you are now, and then tie in your interests and your goals in the future to this particular position at this particular company. You're really trying to explain what the highlights of your career have been until now and how those tie into this particular position at this particular company. So you don't need to go all the way back to kindergarten. You don't need to tell me what your best friend's favorite color is. Start from where you're from, whether you're from the US or you're from a certain state or you're from overseas, maybe why you chose Georgetown as a school, what major you chose and why you chose it, some highlights that have sparked interest in this particular industry, and then why you applied for this position and how that ties into your overall career goals. So start with the now, go back maybe 4 or 5 years, bring the listener back up to where you are now, and then talk about how that ties into this particular position at this particular company. So some do's and don'ts for this particular question. Do keep your response to between 30 and 60 seconds. Some people call this your elevator pitch. Some people call this your 30-second pitch. Whatever it is, you really don't want to ramble on for more than a minute or even a minute and a half. It's getting a little bit long. You want to talk about relevant skills, relevant experiences, and how it all ties together to this particular company. Anything that's relevant in developing your career is something you can talk about in this particular answer to your question. You can also include facts from your past that could spark interesting conversation. So maybe you became a certified skydiver, or maybe you are really interested in scuba diving. Well, that may not be particularly relevant to this particular interview. It's something that could spark a further conversation. So you might want to just throw that in there as a little bit of an anecdote. Don't ramble. Don't regurgitate your resume. Some people start going through every single detail of your resume. You just want to stick to the highlights at this point. Don't include personal information. You really don't want to talk about if you're married, if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend. Keep all of that out of it and really stick to what is relevant to the particular interviewer and what they want to hear. Walk me through your resume. This question is similar to tell me about yourself, but really what they're focusing on is your overall career. This question isn't asked as often, but the advantage of getting asked this question is you can really frame the interview at this point. At this time, it's perfectly fine to hang out and actually walk them through the resume. Again, you don't want to read every single bullet point. Hopefully they've looked at your resume before the interview, but you do want to focus on some highlights that will, again, spark a conversation and will also allow the interviewer, guide the interviewer to asking questions about things that you want to talk about. So if you have a particular skill, you have a particular internship that you were really proud of, really pointing it out on the resume is a nice way to have the conversation go in that direction. But again, start with your high school, start with where you're from, how you got to Georgetown, some of the highlights of your career at Georgetown, whether they were internships or clubs or certain classes that you've taken, and then tie it all together to why you applied to this position and why you're here at this particular interview. Again, keep the content focused on your resume. Use this opportunity to set the tone for the interview and hopefully guide the content of the interview to what you want to talk about. And discuss the skills that you've developed at each of your internships or each of your experiences, because really the interviewer is also asking the question, how much do I have to train this person before they're actually functional at my company? So talking about the skills, talking about the accomplishments that you've had at other experiences is a great way to highlight the fact that yes, you are qualified for this particular job at this particular company. Again, don't ramble on, stick to what's on the resume. Don't discuss negative aspects of particular positions that you've held. Don't say something like, oh, I hated it there, all they made me do is get coffee. You want to focus on the positive and the skills that you learned coming away from that particular internship or experience. And again, you also don't want to discuss personal information. That's something that is not particularly relevant to an interview. So the bulk of most interviews come down to behavioral questions. The reason that interviewers really rely on behavioral questions is because they're trying to predict how you will behave at their company based on similar situations that you have encountered in past experiences. So behavioral questions usually start out with, tell me about a time when. Tell me about a time when you took the lead in something. Tell me about a time when you faced a challenge. Tell me about a time when you had to work as part of a team. Tell me about a time when you had to manage different priorities and different projects. They're trying to see how you make decisions in these different situations and how you will handle those similar decisions at their particular company. Now, as with all of these different categories, there is a formula to answer this kind of question, and we call that formula STAR. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So thinking about anecdotes using this particular acronym will help your thought process in providing a coherent answer to these questions. So first you want to describe the situation that you were in. Then you want to tell the interviewer about the task that you were assigned or the challenge that you faced. Then you want to go into the actions that you took to solve the problem. And this is where you want to spend a lot of your time, because the actions that you took to solve the problem are the skills that you've learned and that you're being hired for. So really focus your time on the actions. A lot of people get lost in the situation or the task they were assigned. Focus on the actions and then get into the overall result. What was the outcome of the actions that you took to solve the problem? And really what you want to focus on are, again, positive anecdotes, focusing on results that favored the previous organization, favored the company, favored the project that you were working on, favored the class that you were working in. Keeping it positive and keeping it to where everybody lives happily ever after allows the interviewer to focus on those particular skills and will want to bring those skills and you to their company. The key with behavioral questions is to really go through ahead of time and come up with anecdotes to these types of questions. There are lots of sample questions available, and there is a list available on our website as well. And sit down and come up with those anecdotes so you're not struggling during the interview. You want to have anecdotes that talk about teamwork, leadership, time management, facing a challenge, decision making. If you have 2 or 3 anecdotes for each of those different categories, then you will be set for almost any interview. You want to practice. You want to practice ahead of time, practice your anecdotes. Don't wait until the day of the interview to go through your notes or to go through your anecdotes. And things that you don't want to do are, again, like I said before, getting lost in the situation, focus on the actions, focus on the results. And again, practice, practice, practice. Don't wait until the day before or the night before to do a mock interview. Reach out to a career counselor and really do some mock interviews ahead of time. Sometimes last minute interviews come up, and that's okay. If you don't have an interview scheduled, start now. Start coming up with your anecdotes, and you'll be fine on interview day. The next set of questions are specific to the particular industry that you are interviewing for. If you're interviewing for a finance position, then you'll get some technical questions here. If you're interviewing for consulting, you'll get case interview questions. If you're interviewing for a marketing position or at an ad agency, you might get questions on the latest trends in social media. So it just depends on the industry that you are interviewing in as to what types of industry-specific questions you'll get. For other industries that may not have those specific categories, they'll often focus on client relations or satisfying a customer or solving a particular problem at work. So really focusing on client or customer interaction is a good idea for these types of questions. Again, you can get some sample interviews at a variety of different places. For finance, mergers and inquisitions.com is a great site, as is Wall Street Oasis and eFinancial Careers. Those are the most commonly used by Georgetown students. For advertising or marketing, I would look at Ad Age magazine and get a sense of what's going on in the industry. I would also look at what's going on in social media, where different target markets are spending their time. And for consulting, case interview prep, one great book, as most people know, is Case in Point by Mark Cosentino. Victor Chang has a lot of resources, including a resource called Look Over My Shoulder, where he demonstrates case interviews. And the key to all of these types of interviews is practice, practice, practice. These are interview skills that you're developing, and you cannot develop a skill overnight. These are things that you have to practice and practice. You can reach out to a student club, you can reach out to maybe seniors or alum who have gone through these interviews before. You can reach out to career advisors or career counselors. Any of those people are generally very willing to help you do a mock interview and to help you practice these kinds of questions. Some don'ts for these types of questions: if you don't know the answer, don't fake it. Interviewers can tell in a second when you're trying to make up an answer that you don't know is true, so don't try to fake it. A nice answer might be, that sounds really interesting. I actually haven't done that before, but I'm looking forward to learning more about it at your company. Can you tell me your experience with this particular situation? If it's a finance question, you may have to ask some more questions to get some more information. And get as far as you can, but again, don't make it up as you go, because they'll know in a second. With case interviews, again, asking questions to get more information out of the interviewer is a great way to figure out maybe what it is that they're looking for. And again, don't wait until the night before to practice. These are skills that you're developing, so you'll want to practice them over time. So the next questions you'll get are the why questions. Why are you interested in this particular company? Why are you interested in this particular industry? What the interviewer is really asking at this point is, are you a good fit? Are you a good fit for this particular company? Will you fit into our culture? Will you get along with our people? And from an industry standpoint, do you really know what you're getting yourself into? Are you actually interested in this industry and working in this industry? Or is it just that tech sounds cool and you want to be working at Facebook because it's a cool thing to work for? So they're going to dig a little bit deeper. And what you want to do to answer this question is to really take some time to assess your skills, to figure out what you're good at, and to figure out what the industry values or what the company values so that you can match your skills to what the company or the industry is looking for. This is not the time to say, I'd really like to work for your company because I think it'd be a great place to start my career. They know. This is the time to broadcast your skills and to demonstrate your experiences and show how you will help that company. They are looking for someone to come in and get started and to help the company achieve its mission right away. So this is the time where you can address that particular question. So in this reflection, you want to perform some research. Show that you understand the industry and the company and the skills that they demand. Reflect on your own skills and your strength, and then figure out if they tie together. What you don't want to do, again, is state how the company can help your career or list some simple reasons that you think it'd be really great to work for this company. Like, I really like the way that Google displays itself on its webpage. So you want to get a little bit deeper than that. You also don't want to say that, oh, your friend or your cousin or your roommate works for that company or for that industry and it sounds really cool. Why? What is it that they do? Why is it cool? What skills do you have to bring to the table? So you really want to focus on fit. That's the question that you're being asked here. The set of questions you'll get is, do you have any questions for me? Yes, you always do. You want to prepare for the interview by having 3 to 5 questions ready to go. And make sure that they're questions you genuinely want to know the answer to. Questions that spark a conversation. You don't want to ask yes or no questions. If the interviewer is a bit snarky, they will answer with a yes or a no, and then there's a really uncomfortable silence. You'll want to focus on questions that, again, generate a conversation, maybe give you some insight into the company's culture, maybe give you some insight as to the working habits of the people who work at the company, and to really allow you to determine if this company is right for you. Again, it's all about fit. So as much as you want to demonstrate you are right for the company, you also want to find out if the company is right for you, and this is your opportunity to do that. So questions might be, tell me about a day in the life of someone in this position. Tell me about what other successful people in this position have done before. How did they succeed? What characteristics do they have? Tell me about the management structure. Tell me about what inspires you to come to work every day. Tell me about your favorite part of the job. Tell me about what has been the best moment for you at this particular company. And that allows you to get some insight into the culture of the company and if that's right for you. Because again, you don't want to spend 40, 50, 60, even more hours a week at a place where it's not a good fit. This is your opportunity to determine fit for you. So some do's and don'ts for the do you have any questions for me? Again, prepare 3 to 5 questions ahead of time. Know who this company's CEO is. That's really important. That's something a lot of companies value. Know what the company values are. Some companies have them listed on their website. Some it's just sort of intrinsic and you'll have to do some informational interviewing with people who work there. Definitely perform informational interviews if you can, if you have time. Find out what the company values, find out what the culture is like ahead of time, and then you can dig a little bit deeper in. If they say, do you have any questions for me? The answer is not, no, I don't. Okay, this is, again, your time to find out more about the company and if it's for you. And I would also stay away from obscure questions about the balance sheet or the financial information unless you're interviewing for someone who works really deeply within the company. Again, they're probably not going to know about that, and you don't want to stump your interviewer. So stick to questions that, again, generate conversation and that you are genuinely interested in. Okay, so you've prepared for the interview, you got to the interview early, you figured out where the interview takes place, you also looked at who's interviewing you and maybe looked them up on LinkedIn, you got to the interview, you rocked it, now you're done, and now you're back on campus. Now is the time to send a thank you note. Email thank you notes are great, perfectly acceptable. A paper thank you note is unusual and will definitely get you remembered. So if you have the address of the person who interviewed you, you can send them a paper thank you note. And as far as follow-up, if you haven't heard anything in a week or 2 weeks is a perfect time to send a follow-up. Remind them of your skills and strengths and what you're really interested in. 2 or 3 sentence email is perfectly fine. And then ask when you will know some more information. And again, thank them for their time. Hopefully, if you've prepared correctly and you sent your thank you notes, then the next round of interviews or even the job offer is on its way and you have rocked your interview. So congratulations. And if you have questions or you need help, reach out to your career advisor here at Georgetown. Thank you so much for watching Interviewing 101. For more information and to make an appointment with a career coach, go to McDonoughCareers.com. The link is down below. Also, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and you can see more videos here and here on careers. Thanks again.